Hello and welcome to the first Preschool Initiative PI Consortium webinar on family literacy. We are glad you're here or listening to the recording. My name is Lisandra Alexander and I work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Pennsylvania is the lead state for this grant. This meeting is being recorded and because of the size of the room, your video and audio are muted. Please take a moment to find the chat box. There will be several pauses during the presentation for questions or comments. You will be prompted to type in the chat. We encourage your participation to enrich the webinar. We can learn as much from you as you learn from us. So let's get started. The Preschool Initiative, or PI, is a consortium incentive grant. Consortium incentive grants, which are also known as SIGs, are authorized under Section 1308D of the Elementary and Secondary Act and reauthorized under ESSA. The purpose of the SIGs is to promote interstate coordination among MEPs nationwide. Competitive incentives grants are awarded to SEAs to improve the delivery of services to migratory children and youth whose education has been interrupted. Pennsylvania is the consortium's lead state. Member states are, as you can see in the map, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Maine, Missouri, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Washington. Currently, we have these partner states: Alaska, Hawaii, Indiana, Montana, and North Carolina. So the goals for the PI-SIG are to expand the capacity of state and local MEPs to serve migrant pre-K children, ensure that more services are provided to migrant 3 to 5-year-old children, and disseminate information on evidence-based and promising practices. So let's go over what we're going to do today. The purpose of today is to introduce you to resources available in the PI Clearinghouse for parent engagement, specifically a module on developing language and literacy at home, and its companion Quick Facilitators Reference Guide. We will also quickly reference the Family Literacy Strategies Workshop, which also has versions from Florida and Pennsylvania. In addition, I will also quickly review literacy and the importance of family engagement in literacy, provide language and literacy examples, share resources for practitioners and parents. The slides and recording will be emailed after the webinar and will be posted to the Clearinghouse www.preschoolinitiative.org. Again, because this is a recording, your video and audio are muted. There will be several pauses during the presentation for questions and comments. You'll be prompted to type in the chat. If you have any burning questions or comments, feel free to type those in the chat box as well, and we will get to them. So let's start with some audience interaction. Find that chat box, and in there, I'm going to ask you to type, what does literacy mean to you? Literacy is the ability to, and fill in the blank. I'll have Michelle Shaney help me with your comments. So what do you think literacy is? Type it in the chat box. All right, I see some people are starting to type. There's a little icon that looks like 2 bubbles, Q&A, and that would be where you put it, I guess. I see some very various things. Michelle, are you still muted?
I'm still here, and we have lots of fantastic answers coming in. It looks like there's some consensus around reading and writing. I love that people have mentioned oral skills, ability to recognize written language, the connection to letters and sounds. So very comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. I see that as well. Reading capital letters. All right, so let's see what the letter definition is. Oh, somebody put numeracy. That's interesting.
Well, knowing what those numbers look like and what they mean, what those symbols mean, is a form of reading.
Exactly. Okay. So it's the ability to read, write, spell, listen, and speak. So you were on the right track, but we know it's more than reading, and it also requires other skills as well. Listening, speaking, spelling. So thank you for your participation. So early literacy is what children know about reading and writing before they can read or write. Okay. So let's go into home language. Language is the most important gift that families can give to their children. As practitioners, it is important that we encourage the families we work with to speak with their children at home using the language they are most comfortable with. When a family members use their home language, they are often able to share their thoughts and ideas in a more complex way than they could in English, allowing children to build a stronger foundation of concepts and vocabulary. Hold on one moment. Okay, sorry for the pause. So what's the importance of family engagement in literacy? Regarding the role of the family, contrary to common belief, research suggests that the most common important contribution of the family to their young children's second language learning is to help them develop and maintain their first language. Maintenance of the home language allows the child to master the home language and also provides a positive influence in developing a second language. The skills, literacy, and components of the home language will transfer to or aid the development of the second language. Families are willing to help, but they may not know how, and that's where we come in. Parents are the first and most important teachers. There are things that we can do every day with even no or with limited funds. We'll go over this in more detail later in the presentation. All right, so the floor is open for any questions or comments. Please type any questions or comments in the chat box.
Lysandra, this is Michelle. I don't see any new information coming in, but while you were talking, I do want to point out that someone put in there speaking does not necessarily mean vocalizing, and that meaning can be conveyed through sign language and or gestures. And so that's really important when we think about literacy.
Mm-hmm. There's also a Q&A box. And I see the ability to read and write are most important to being proficient in the language. That was Linda. And then we have Donna. Literacy means having access to culturally responsive text, both in school and at home. Literacy also means speaking and writing at home and at school.
Fantastic. And we do have some other comments in the chat room about use of native language and encouraging families to use their native language. And we know the research on that definitely supports use of native language. There's a lot of substantial information out there that talks about children learning to read and write, and having great vocabularies in their native language is extremely beneficial to learning another language like English. So the more that we can do to support native language acquisition, the better the students are.
Very good. I'm glad we have a thoughtful, participating audience. It always makes for a better, more enriching webinar that way.
Absolutely. We do have a question about what our opinions are about teaching preschoolers 2 languages at the same time. And I'm happy to share my personal opinion, and you can weigh in, Lysandra. In no way, shape, or form does this necessarily represent the collective opinion of all the consortium states, but I'm a big proponent of bilingual education. And like I just said, the research really points to the assets for children learning more than one language and the benefits. So being able to teach a child of any age more than one language is certainly something that I'm in favor of. Lysandra, you have a lot of information on working with dual language learners. What do you think?
Okay, so we're not going to go into dual language learners specifically in this presentation. However, dual language learners can learn languages sequentially, which means they can learn one language and then add another. They can also learn English simultaneously. So let's say a parent speaks one language and they hear another parent speaking another language, they can actually get those at the same time as well. There's a lot of good literature and materials from the WIDA website that go over this, including the parent engagement aspect of language development.
And just one last comment, as we continue through this presentation and look at the preschool initiative materials, you will see in there that we encourage use of home or native language. And we also provide suggestions for parents who are not literate in any language on how they can support language and literacy development in any language for their children. So you see, we've tried to consider everyone and use the research right in our materials.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for all your comments and questions. So we have a parent engagement page that has been created in the PI Consortium Clearinghouse. The parent engagement page includes 2 modules. One is for use with parents, which is a module will be discussed today, developing language and literacy at home. And the other one is to be used with practitioners to help them work with families. It's called Working Effectively with Parents. So keep in mind that that's also available for you to train your staff. As you can see, the email for the preschool initiative is there. And both of these materials come with a quick use facilitator's guide. Alrighty. So this is what the parent engagement page looks like. Hold one moment.
While Lysandra's stepped away from the phone, I just want to say that we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. One of them is, how can we encourage parents more to do literacy activities with their children at home? And I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first is to help parents really understand the impact of language development as a beginning step, and then those emergent literacy skills, storytelling, reading books to them in any language. So if they understand the impact of that and the importance of it, they're more likely to do it. The other thing I think that is extremely useful is for those parents to have examples of activities that they can actually do and manage at home during the course of everyday life. So we're not trying to turn parents into skilled reading teachers, but capitalize on what they do as parents and as families already during the course of the day, and show them where to build in language and literacy development kinds of playful activities. And so those are highlighted in our parent engagement resources on our PI website.
Thank you, Michelle. I don't know if you guys could hear that feedback, but we'll keep going, and hopefully nobody else will talk loudly. I don't know if it made into the recording or not. So
I'm not hearing any feedback, so I think you're good to go. Yep.
Good. So you would go to the Preschool Initiative website, and you can put /parent-engagement, and it will take you directly to this page. In addition to the resources that we're going to talk about today, there is also another, the learning kits information that you can use with parents and students as well. So let's go to developing language and literacy at home. This was designed for use by preschool educators with migrant parents of preschool children, ages 3 to 5. It provides parents with important information about language and literacy development, strengthens the partnership between preschool service providers and parents, and supplements family engagement activities and preschool instruction. This parent module is also available in Spanish. Developing language and literacy at home. This is the companion's facilitator's guide that gives you the tips and tricks to use during this module with the parents. We'll go to each of these topics in more detail. School readiness, language and vocabulary development, read with kids daily, reading tips for parents, motivating young learners. So as a preparation for facilitators, they should read the entire document first, ensuring they understand the topic, layout, and activities. Determine whether it will be made in conjunction with a larger parent engagement activity or as a standalone event. So it can definitely be used one-on-one or as a group. You should plan approximately 30 to 35 minutes to review and discuss the information and carry out the activities. Gather the materials needed to review and discuss the information and carry out the activities. And gather materials you need to carry out the activities and model for parents. So for example, you can have one fiction book, one nonfiction book, one wordless book, 2 resources from a section called Resources for Parents. So another audience interaction moment. Type in the chat box, what skills do you think children need to know prior to entering kindergarten?
And Lysandra, while folks are typing, I want to make sure I get Elizabeth Walker's question answered. And her question is about whether or not anyone has had success with encouraging parents and children to remain literate in both languages. And I think this is a great question with a difficult, multifaceted answer. We want to make sure that we're getting the families correct information to start with, and that they understand the benefits of bilingualism. because of course we know that sometimes they may hear in their schools or in their community to use English only, and that others that surround these kids and families may not truly understand the benefits of bilingualism. So that's important to share with families. And I think particularly for older learners, middle school, high school students, continuing that language development and literacy in your native language can be challenging, because where is that happening? So maybe verbally or orally, parents continue to use languages at home, their home language, and within the home walls, or but outside of that, are there any classes at the school, at a local community place like a church or a community college, where those kids can really continue their education with native language? And so just a couple of thoughts I wanted to share and make sure Elizabeth's question got answered. And if anybody else has good suggestions for her, please feel free to type those in the chat room.
I just wanted to add, keeping students literate and bilingual in both languages, it's really hard. I can tell from personal experience, my nieces and nephews, I have one family, my sister's family, they speak in Spanish at home. However, because English is a dominant language in their environment, my sister will talk to them in Spanish and they respond in English. So, I mean, it's a struggle for everyone, I believe. Do we have anything in the chat, Michelle?
We do. We have lots of great things around what kids need to know when they enter kindergarten. And so we see some of the usual suspects in there: letters, numbers, sounds, kids being able to play with each other, colors, shapes, some basic counting skills, all those things that we would expect to see on the list. And I think some of the folks are also alluding to what we consider to be executive function skills. So how kids think about thinking, organize, interact with each other, be able to respond. And I know you're going to give us a pretty comprehensive list here. Are you there, Lysandra?
Yes, did you have a question for me?
No. I think that pretty much covers the list in the chat room.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a good suggestion of a TED Talk here about the benefits of the bilingual brain.
Oh yeah, I've seen that video. Mm-hmm. It's very good. Did we answer Tatiana's question on how to encourage more parents to do literacy activities with the children at home?
Yes, I had a chance to address that question when you had to step away for because of the interference you were trying to sort out.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Very, very interesting answers. Like I said, we learn as much from you as you learn from us. So let's get started. Section 1 is school readiness. We are familiar with what is expected of the child in kindergarten, but this may be a new topic for parents. Encourage them to talk, sing, play. You already mentioned many of these. I will give you a few seconds to take a look here, what those skills that they're expected to know are. So the suggestion in the quick facilitator's guide, quick use, the practitioner should review the school readiness section with parents. Some suggested activities include, before sharing the school readiness section, ask parents what they think the kids need to know when they start kindergarten. And then compare the responses to the list. You can ask parents to review the list and indicate which items the kid can already do, and provide examples of nursery rhymes, songs, games, and a pretend play that support school readiness knowledge and skills. And we'll do a couple of these and then take a moment to for audience interaction. Section 2 is language and vocabulary development. So the facilitator should review the language and vocabulary section with parents. Make sure parents know that children can expand their vocabulary in any language. Some suggested activities include talk to the daily routines and activities that parents and children can do together to build language and vocabulary. Ask parents to share additional family activities where language and vocabulary can be developed, like doing laundry, making breakfast, riding in the car. You can also ask parents to select 2 examples to incorporate in their daily routines. So things like making a list, grocery list, identifying colors, numbers, shapes, letters, sounds, make predictions, or extending the conversation with your children. Section 3 is reading with kids daily. Parents should know that they should be reading every day and that reading encompasses more than books and that it can be done in any language. How many times do kids recognize the McDonald's golden arches? It is a perfect example how to talk about the letter M. It is important for parents to know that they should ask questions through the reading, before, during, and after, and extend the reading with fun activities. So in this section, the practitioner should review 3 sections: reading with kids daily, reading questions, and after you read sections with parents. So some suggested activities include showing parents examples of different reading materials that you brought with you. Read a short book to parents or children, asking before, during, and after reading questions. You can do that with the whole family. And select an after you read activity to complete with the parents or child. This can be puppets, sock puppets, drawing, like they're talking about the story, or what's your favorite part, having kids write. So let's pause here for some questions and comments in the chat.
And Lysandra, while folks are typing their questions into the chat room, I just want to reiterate that we're using the word reading rather broadly, because if parents are not literate in any language, we strongly encourage them to still look at books with their children and to tell the stories. We also want to use oral tradition and storytelling from the family or the culture as a way to build language and emergent literacy skills. So there are a lot of different ways then families can go about reading with their children, and I'm sort of using that word reading in multiple contexts here.
Yep, very well. So what are folks saying, Michelle?
We have one comment in now about a program, the Scholastic Read and Rise Family Conversation, and it's a 6-session set of materials that they've received great feedback on. It's something that I'm actually not familiar with, so I'll be interested to take a look at that.
Where was it at again?
It's the Scholastic Read and Rise.
Interesting. Any more questions, comments?
We'll give folks just one more minute in case they want to type anything in. All right, between the Q&A and the chat room, we just have a couple of folks saying thanks for sharing this information and reminding us, you know, the importance of reading, writing, and building those different skill sets that include the social skill sets too. And that sort of brings me
But
back to the executive function skills.
definitely, definitely.
And then folks just reiterating what the parents can do. So whether they're singing songs with the kids, playing rhyming word games, those are all very helpful to language and eventually literacy development.
Definitely. Thank you all for your participation. This is great. So the section 4 are reading tips for parents. So parents can incorporate reading, and I have reading quotation marks, into everyday activities. Practice. Well, we were. I think one of you mentioned that in the chat that reading can actually be broader. Maybe it should be literacy, and everyday activities that we will discuss in a little bit can help with this. So playing games with letters and sounds, repeating and building on what the child says. A good example is the sound walk, where you can say things like, "This is McDonald's. It starts with the letter M. Do you know any words that start with that sound?" So that would be going around and saying, "Okay, what is that? Oh, it's a dog. It starts with the letter D." You can also present a wordless book, like Michelle has alluded to parents and caretakers and the child, and tell the story as you move from page to page. And again, tell the stories in quotation marks. Provide examples of age-appropriate language and literacy games families can play, and this can include some free fun apps that are out there. Section 5 is motivating young learners, and it really is all about the motivation. Young children who have fun reading experiences are more likely to succeed in school. Parents should know what their children's interests are, and start reading experiences that match those interests. So, for example, if a child is interested in trucks, you might want to find books about trucks and kind of feed off that interest. So things that you can do with some suggested activities that you can do with this section would be asking parents or caretakers what interests their children and what activities their child would like to do. You can model for parents on how to read a story using different voices for different characters. And of course, you can provide examples of fun activities that they can do with their kids, they can do together, like making sock puppets for storytelling, acting out a scene from the story, or drawing a picture of their favorite part of the reading. And just a little plug to the section that we did on the learning kits actually provide a lot of these fun activities. I don't know if you're going to say a little bit more about that, Michelle.
Sure. So our consortium members put together what we called learning kits, and they were literally little backpacks or bags that had several different books in them and 4 activities or lessons. And so there were 2 around language and literacy development and 2 around numeracy development. And the idea was that the service provider would easily be able to carry these to the house, use the books and the activities with the students, and also model for the parents so that the parents then could then replicate, you know, the activities with their kids when the service provider wasn't there. Because they contain several different books and 4 lessons, they were designed to be used over multiple sessions. But if a service provider only had the opportunity to go to the house once, they could certainly pick a couple of the activities to model for the parents and work through with them and then be able to leave all the materials. And so those were very successful. We also had some of the states, I know Idaho, for example, that took the idea of the learning kits and expanded it. So they created more kits for their preschool students with different activities and books in them. And then they also created kits across ages and grades to be used during summer service with their kids. So even the older kids were given some activities or lessons and some books that they worked through with the service providers that they could keep when everyone was finished. So that was quite successful. And all the information about our learning kits is available on our website. And if you have any additional questions or you'd like some training on how we use those activities and books, you can feel free to reach out to Lysandra or myself and we'd be able to walk you through those.
Do we have any questions or comments in the chat? See a couple. I don't know if they're new.
Yep, just a couple of folks saying thank you.
Yeah, they said singing is important, memorizing songs, and rhythm. Oh, that's Irene. Hi, Irene.
And then we've got that Read and Rise Family Conversations. That was the name of the resource that was mentioned earlier. I didn't quite have that right. That's the one I want to look into.
Oh, okay. See a couple more coming in. Michelle, they're asking about the cost for each kit.
So I appreciate that some of you online were some of the folks who were able to use those learning kits. Any feedback that you have that you want to email or chat about later would be really helpful, as we always want to make sure that our materials are truly accessible and useful to the parents. The average cost of the kit that we built, the kits were $50. We allotted $50 per kit. They included 3 books, all the materials to carry out the activities in those, for those 4 activity sets, the 2 around numeracy and the 2 around language and literacy development. I think depending on how budgets come together in your LEAs or your SEAs, you could alter the costs. So we included a lot of materials so that kids had those things at home, scissors, glue, crayons, and they were directly related to the activities that the kids were doing. But I think if you had more money and you wanted to expand the kits, great. And if you had less, there's certainly a way to do that too.
The foam pieces were a big success. Even my staff really liked them.
Yeah, we had foam shapes and different sizes and colors, and there were some sorting activities in there. So I think it was a lot of fun for the families. Irene did chime in too. So Irene is from Idaho. She was with the group that expanded the use of the learning kits. And so she talks there about they developed a list of books and activities for their first and second graders. Somebody else asked about the learning kits. Can you have the information to teach it to the parents as a group? Absolutely. And I know some of our states did take that approach. The materials can be used in flexible settings. So they were designed for home-based outreach service provision. But we did have a couple of states that had like parent nights for summer schools, and they took the opportunity to share the information, the parents, the books and the activities with them in that venue and model for them. Our kits were designed for 3 to 5-year-olds not yet in kindergarten, because we are the Preschool Initiative Consortium. So our task is to take a look at kids specifically 3 to 5 not in a kindergarten program. But a couple of folks that have questions about kits across different age and grade levels, I might be able to connect you with some of the states like Idaho that are looking at that.
I think we had one more.
Did I miss one? I think we're all set, Lysandra, unless you think I missed one.
All right. No, it's somebody saying thank you. You're welcome. So here are some practitioner tips. You can pick and choose what you present and in what order. You need to think of the needs of the families and the time that you have available. So you are the expert and you can see where the student might need some extra help, or where you can empower the parents to do more. You can choose to do it in different visits, or just pick a couple of topics and present them to a group. Originally, we had the family strategies workshop. Is how we kind of piloted this, and it was presented as a group. And this document that is also available in Spanish. The practitioner tips. So we have some good news. There is already a PowerPoint created by the consortium that you can use to assist in your presentation. And it has the same sections in the same order. They're labeled a little different, but the sections are kindergarten readiness, language and vocabulary development, reading with kids, learning letter names and sounds, and motivating kids. Does anybody have any questions about the PowerPoint presentation? I saw something come in the chat, Michelle.
Yep, we've just had a couple questions come in about some of the resources and the languages that they're available in. We also got a little bit more information on that Scholastic Read and Rise Family Conversation program, so that was extremely helpful. I think you're good to go, Lysandra.
Okay, very good. So let's finish up with some examples. So these are some things that you can use with parents. So you select a routine like making dinner, and then you break it up, talk about the steps. So first, we need to slice the cucumbers for the salad, or the tomatoes in this instance. Talk about the shapes, colors, numbers, and counting. How many tomatoes do we have? Let's count them. 1, 2. What color are the tomatoes? Etc. You can just have a conversation while you're cooking. And this can be done with anything. It can be going to the library. It can be walking around the neighborhood and talking about what you see, any routines, making a list to go to the supermarket, etc. Another example is playing with language. So you can have an example of a song or nursery rhyme. And one example of a rhyme song that you can do finger play with is the Itsy Bitsy Spider. So I think you're probably all familiar with that. I'm not going to sing it for you. But this is a great opportunity, and there are videos online that can help you with that. And you can do it in any language. Encourage them to do it in their main language. I know not all of our clients are Spanish speaker, but that is the main language in our program. But definitely, if you can find resources in other languages, that's great. Like when Pennsylvania did a literacy workshop, we had an all-day workshop, and we were able to find books in Arabic and Nepali and everything like that. Which is also an alternative that you might have in your budget. So this was really fun, like creating like a reading nook or a reading corner, or even if you can see that, of course, safety first, but you can create a little nest with the kids, make like a little hammock with sheets underneath a table. So really and just making a little place where the books are kept and when the children can sit down to read, where the family can read together, can go a long way. And all of these ideas are in Pinterest. Of course, a lot of our family have great oral traditions. So encourage the parents and extended family to share their stories with their children. It's very important for them to learn that. So it doesn't have to be written language all the time. Storytelling is wonderful for kids' imaginations, to connect them to their culture, etc. Another example is integrating the STEAM, science, technology, art, and math, into children's books. So here are a couple of examples of books that you can actually have STEM topics in them, and you can create art activities from them, all kinds of things with them. So there should be a list maybe of all of these different resources for STEM. There's like so much out there that you can find nowadays.
Lysandra,
So we'll
can
break. Sure, go ahead.
Oh, this is good timing. I was just going to say, could I just mention one of my favorite books for young learners called Making and Tinkering with STEM. I'll type it in the chat room in just a moment. But what it is there are several chapters in the book, and each chapter gives you a different hands-on inquiry-based activity to do with the students, along with an anchor book, and then several different ways that you can either differentiate or extend the activity. So it's kind of a really neat book. And then we're actually using some of the activities in the book to develop instructional units. A little bit different from the learning kits. Our instructional units will require a service provider to meet with the families at least 3 times. They'll do a different STEM-based activity each time, and they'll leave books and other supplies with the families so that they can do some of those extension activities after the service provider leaves. And not only are we focused on the STEM, but all of this is happening with executive function skills as part of the skill set that we're working with families and kids on. So they'll be well-rounded. It'll be a well-rounded set of materials. And those will be out later this year. They're still in process.
Thanks for the preview, Michelle. As you can see, we have a lot going on. So any final questions or comments? We'll take some time now for those. Yeah, Michelle put in the chat the name of the book.
And I don't
in
see
the internet. Yeah, I don't see any either.
Yep, I don't see any other comments or questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pinterest is a great place to find tons of ideas. Teacher paid teachers sometimes have some free stuff that you can actually use for different things. So there's a lot of things out there that can help you create lessons. No need to start from scratch. There's a lot out there, right, Michelle?
Absolutely. So many wonderful things out there. And even if you find a book or a set of resources and materials that you like and you have to tinker with it a little bit so that it fits with either your service model or the duration of time that you have with the students, whatever, I encourage you to see what's out there and not think that you have to start from scratch.
I thought we got a question, but
We had a couple other comments come in. Somebody said the Krankenstein books that book looks like a lot of fun, and somebody else is thanking us for the presentation, the interaction, and the important information.
I think we just got one more.
Will we send out the PowerPoint? And we will. I will follow up with the group and send out the PowerPoint. We also do plan to put the recording and the PowerPoint on our website, so you'll be able to look for it there in short order, but I'll make sure everyone that attended today gets it.
Did we get one more? I thought I saw something come in.
Someone mentions file folders is a good resource. I'm not familiar with that one either, but I'll definitely take a look. And Ready to Learn calendar. So some really nice things coming in that people use already that they find very helpful. That's one of the nicer aspects of having you all come together and participate in a webinar like this, is that you already have some really great resources that you can share with each other. And I know Lysandra mentioned this earlier, that we learn as much from you as we hope that you learn through our presentation. So I'm definitely going to look up a couple of these resources that I haven't used myself.
Okay, so let's move on to the resources. So a lot of you were interested in dual language literacy. There's actually a lot of information out there for practitioners to work with dual language learners. And one of my favorite ones is the Dual Language Learner Toolkit that comes out of the Head Start. So they have a really good framework where you can have conversations with parents on how they're using language, and it's step by step. It's very easy to use, user-friendly, great. We have some materials here that come from Pennsylvania, but anybody can have access to it. Like the Language and Literacy Pyramid has a section on early language and literacy, and they also have things for parents and home visitors, so that can be helpful as well. These are the resources that were listed in the actual resource. So we have Starfall, Spark Innovations, Ready Rosie, and all of these can be used by parents and students. There are also some fun apps. I should have put those here too. Resources for parents. Some of these are websites that the parent can go into to work with their children, and some are also available in other languages as it's noticed. So the first one, the PA Promise, again, is a Pennsylvania website, but you can go on there and there's great information specifically for parents on parent development, children development, and we are going to have an upcoming webinar on developmental milestones. So some of that information is here, but it's parent-friendly. PBS Parents is wonderful, a wonderful resource that they can use. And they also have a page that's just language and literacy, and the whole website is also in Spanish. Like I mentioned, here is the direct link to the Families and Home Visitors section of the Pennsylvania Early Intervention website. And also the last one, the Talk, Read, and Sing Together Every Day, has great tip sheets on incorporating all of these examples with parents from baby all the way to 5 years old. I know, I think it goes all the way to 8 years old, third grade, because the definition of early childhood is kind of expanding to include those children up to age 8. So you can go check out those resources on Talk, Read, Sing as well. And it has been my pleasure to share these resources with you. You may contact Michelle, the director, or me if you have any questions, and thank you for your time and attention. Any final comments come in, Michelle?
We had folks just asking about a follow-up, with the PowerPoint and a list of the resources that were mentioned today, so we will certainly take care of that. I think that's it. Just some thank yous, which we greatly appreciate, and we'd like to thank you all also for your time and your contributions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Let's stop the recording, Rob.